getting ready for a listing presentation. What do you guys do? Kind of tell me your process. So you have an appointment with me today to list my house. So now's the time, because I know you guys aren't super busy. You're busy, but you're not super busy yet. So this is when our team really gets focused and says, okay, what do we need to prepare for next year? Because we know come March it's going to be really busy. So you're talking about a listing presentation. So there's a couple things you could do, but this is our listing presentation. It's the same kind of thing, why you would use us for our unique services, where we advertise, things that we do differently than most other agents. The listing consultation, which is really what we're gonna kind of do. And I know, Delilah, you and I went over this. Preparing your home. So a very nice way to say your house smells like cat is in here. And it gives you a chance to lead into that conversation. We do show them kind of what their flyers are gonna look like, why we recommend a professional photographer, why stage your house, and then kind of our same thing, our production and who we are.
Dang, that is really amazing.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's,
Wow.
5 years in the making, so we didn't make it overnight.
So cool.
So kind of so when you prepare, so the first stage for us is,
I love the bios. The bios are the cutest things.
Lily, or my dad.
Yes,
My favorite's
yes.
my dad, but I'm a little biased. So the first thing we do, you call me for a listing presentation. Jay, list my house today. What would be your first thing you would do?
Okay, so if we're on the phone, just get your general information, try to set the appointment with you. I end up setting the appointment. Then I go into the assessor's office and I'll pull the assessor sheet for your property. So that way I know the specifics, and then after that I look at all the comps that have sold in the area, everything that's under contract and everything that's active.
Mm-hmm.
So that way I'm prepared when I go in, because that's always gonna be one of the first things that they're gonna ask about.
Right.
I get the assessor sheet and get my folder made, which has all the MLS like setup page printouts, so that way I could fill them in while I'm at the appointment.
Did you hear that? So Jay talks really fast. Let me slow him down. So he's gonna print the county assessor, because we wanna make sure if we go and they have a full finished basement, the county assessor says we don't have a basement on here. We wanna know, has it been permitted? How long ago did you have it? Those types of things, because I've been in houses where it had no basement and it must have been dug out, after it was an older house. So we pull that. Then we go back to all of the MLS that if it was ever listed or expired. I do that because I want to see what the photos look like, 3 or 4 years ago, to see what it looks like now. And then if it expired, why did it expire? Was the price too high? Was it not staged? Did they get cold feet and take it off the market? Did they get feedback that hurt their feelings and it was too traumatic to list the property? Because I have had people get where it's so hard sometimes to take people's feedback and there's nothing they can do about it. They withdraw. Doesn't happen very often now because I'm in a different stage of my business and I have a lot of people that I know I could work with. So then we get a folder. So we get everything we have. I'm a book person. You guys know me very well. Everything I have is in book format because I like paper. I like to read it, feel it, touch it. So we start putting that in one location. Because here's what I did for, 5 or 6 years till I got so busy. I'd stuff the papers in my bag, then I'd pull them out at the presentation because all I had was kind of their listings and the actives and the solds, and they'd be all wrinkled, and I'd have to dig through my bag some more to find the other page I forgot. So everything's in a book. So systems. This is where you guys need to get started. So have a system of what you want to do. Our system, pull a county assessor, see if it's ever been listed. Get the history on the property kind of thing. And then when Jay says we interview them, so some of the questions I ask is, why are you selling? how long until you want to see a sign in the yard? I have one I'm going on this weekend, 2 years. That he wants to have a rough idea what his house is worth right now, because he knows in 2 years it should be worth more than that. And what he's gonna build, and he's a custom builder and asked me to come out and take a look at what he's got. So I've had people, I need a sign in the yard this week. Okay, that means I need to get you in today or tomorrow. Like, you have to know if he's not putting his house on the market for 2 years, I could put him off 2 weeks. Go ahead, Kim.
Jenny, are you using a seller survey or a seller questionnaire?
We do.
Actually writing these things, or are you just having conversation?
We do both. So,
So you actually have a sheet that you're like taking notes on, or the same sheet?
yes,
for
well, I
everybody?
take them on the MLS sheet, or the county assessor. So before I call them, I already have the county assessor sheet out, and I just jot notes on there. But Jordan sends out the listing consultation questionnaire, and it has some of the questions in Navica too, like, do you have granite? Do you have hardwood? Do you have these things? Because sometimes you don't know. But what it does, because what is the first thing they ask you? What do you think my house is worth? I don't know, I haven't pulled comps. Yeah, but what's your idea of what you think my house is worth? I don't know, because I can't compare you to a house that has laminate and you have hardwood. I've just now blown my market analysis. So what I do is we send that out. Normally, we get a great response when they send them back, because they want us to know. And it also says, what are you looking for in an agent? And it has these questions like straightforward, to the point. So who referred you, your address, the mailing address in case they have a P.O. box, like if it's a Mesa, about their spouse, because a lot of times only one person is on the county assessor, and you go and they have a spouse and I don't know who their name is. And then type of residence, number of bedrooms, baths, those types of things. If there's a specific subdivision they live in, so Quail Ridge or Montana, wherever. And then kind of what their property has. We start asking about appliances, fireplaces, that type of thing, heating and air. And all these are on your MLS sheet. But the reason I do this is I want to know the things that are going to change value. So that's why I put those in there. And then kind of their interior features, because now when I pull a few comps to say what are they looking at, I know, does it have hardwood? Does it have granite? Does it have vinyl everywhere? If it's a basic house, I might be able to pull comps that are pretty darn close to my final number. But if not, then let's just say, you're looking for a house in Pueblo West acreage and it's a ranch style home that's 3,000 square feet. I could choose a lot of houses, so I need to know what's gonna make the difference on that, so that I have a little bit of a guideline. So then when people ask me, what do you think my house is worth? Somewhere between 250 and 270, and when I put in these final key numbers, we'll have an exact number for you. I do that because I kind of need to know what I'm walking into, because these are a lot of the questions that they ask you when you're there. And if you could get them in the beginning and have that kind of built in, it saves you a little bit of time. And then just any upgrades, what they think their house is worth. Because I've had people who think their house is worth $440 and the highest I can get is $390. So we're off. I've had a few of those lately.
So Jamie, can I stop you right there? So, because that happens more often than not, because people have tremendous pride in their home, but they don't necessarily know the market.
Mhm.
So how do you, for lack of a better, talk them off the ledge? I mean, how do you really, I know you can show them the figures and stuff, but how do you really get them to, without, I guess, hurting their heart, or, how do you have that
When their
conversation?
market value's crazy,
Yes.
if you could believe it, very few of these come in high. Very few. They're watching the market because they know they're selling. But when I do have ones that are super high, I always give them a phone call. So I do 2-phase listing appointment. I do market analysis or I do their consultation, and then I do their market analysis and estimated net sheet. So if my number is way off, which we were on that last one, I'm at 390, they're at 440, I call them. and I say, okay, here's my market analysis, let's go over it. If it's really, if it's somebody who I know really wants to sell, they're not just trying to sell to get the most, but they need to sell, I bring them into my office because pictures don't lie. So when they say my house is worth 500,000 or 440, I pull every 440 house that sold in Pueblo West and I compare it to their home. And when they start seeing the photos of that, they realize in their mind that just because the house down the street that was a ranch style on the golf course does not compare to their 2-story that's across the street. So it's black and, it's apples and oranges. So then what I did is, so I'll send that, I'll call them and say, I know that you think your house is worth 440. The market's telling me it's worth 390. We could meet somewhere in the middle, and then I give them statistics, what sells under 400, what sells over 400, that type of thing. And I tell them that if you market your property over value, the marketplace knows because every buyer's looking for that house. So they've seen it. You can market it as high as you want. You will get feedback it's too high, and then you will have to reduce the price. Once we become old inventory, which in Pueblo West, over 400,000, I don't consider old until we're like 6 months because you have 3% of the buyers, consumers buying it. And that's another thing that I use. I just say last year, I pull everything. There was only 12 houses that sold over 400,000 last year. So, okay, and there's 20 houses available. That means we have a year and a half of inventory. So if you overprice it, most likely we're not going to sell it. You're just going to have a bunch of looky-loos looking through your house. It's in their court. Do you want to do it or not, kind of thing. And then if we're just a little over, so like mine will come in at whatever. I have one that came in at 230. They wanted to list it 250. I said, we'll try it. It's almost time for a price reduction now because we know 250 is too high because we're not under contract. But if you have the conversation up front and say, if we're not, statistically, we should be under contract in the first 30 days because everything closed in 60 days. If at 30 days we're not under contract, the market's telling us we're overpriced. But, Kim, the way I feel about is, was that guy and I ever gonna see eye to eye? Never. And what I know is if he went to, let's say, 420, and we got a 420 offer and they needed repairs, he would fight me the whole way because he thinks his house is worth 440. So you just say very nicely, if the market changes in a year, I'll take a look at your property again. Because as the market does grow, I look at all the old market analysis, and if they haven't listed, we do a new one and send it over to them. Because you want their business. But in that point, that'd be a losing battle for me, so I wouldn't have taken it anyways. And for me, he wasn't man enough to call me back, so I mean, we're all adults. Like, he could have told me everything he thought was wrong, which I would have appreciated. And then, what he thought was wrong so that I could communicate to him why we can't use the house on the golf course that's a ranch style.
That's really hard. And so add a whole nother layer of complication on is it's a divorce situation, so they can't.
Mm-hmm. I get the judge involved.
They can't get it. They cannot agree, but so that's really helpful though, showing them that way.
Yeah, and I get a judge. Honestly, I do a lot of divorce cases, and if we can't come to an agreement, and there's always one that usually doesn't want to sell the house, the judge appoints me. The judge says that you're going to list it whatever her market analysis comes in. And I ask the judge if that comes in within 2% of list price, because this is what the market's telling us it's worth. And I've had judges say that you will do any repairs that I recommend. So it makes it a lot easier if you have that set up. Sometimes you don't. If your the attorney that's working it doesn't set it up that way, then I just tell them I'm nobody's advocate. I'm here to sell your house and to try and make you guys as much money as possible, because that's what they're most worried about, is that you're on somebody else's side. And I literally told people, this isn't my divorce. Like, they get so emotional, and I just have to say, this isn't my divorce. I'm here to help you get through the process, because it can be grinding. And it's hours and hours and hours of time, because everything has to be done separately. And then at the end, I don't send anything to their attorneys until we've come to a price agreement, because it costs them, $250 every time I send an email to the attorney. So that was just an off note. If you do those, just don't be emailing the attorney all the time, because it's just racking up their bill. Mhm. So back to the listing. So I'm prepared with this. So when I go in, if they don't fill it out, not a problem. When I get there, we start doing the house. So I tell people, we could start this either way. We could start by a conversation of what you're looking for, what you're expecting from me, and what my team could offer you. Or we could take a look at the house first. You could tell me anything you've done to improve your home or what you love most about it. People love their home. Let them tell you what they love. Don't cut them off. Sometimes agents want to talk instead of listen. So when they're bragging about the home, you should be reinforcing that. Oh yes, I love these hardwood floors. I love this, I love that. Then when it comes to the paint, you love everything else about that paint, but the red wall is no longer in style, and it's gonna look horrible in photos. So when you go to say, I love everything about the house, but the one red wall I think might give us a problem, there are a lot more responsive to painting the wall.
Quick question, Jamie.
Sure.
So, would you say that with this questionnaire, sending it prior to you completing your CMA, and it helps to bring those numbers more accurate with your CMA, because they're answering whether they did upgrades, what kind of surfaces they have, and all of that information that you might not get from the assessors or from MLS.
Right.
Would you say that can help do a one-step process person? Yes.
You can if you want. There's a lot of agents that do a one-step process. This will definitely help you be much closer to that number if they'll fill it out. And then you'll have very few changes, because usually if they fill this out, I can pull comps before I go, and I'll know kind of what my thing is. So you could do a one, and the way I would say that is I believe that this home is worth $250 to $270. $250 would sell it in a month. $270 will sell it in 4 months. And then where do you think you'd like to be at? Where are they going to be? $270. So you just have to make sure that your window's the right window, and then you could do it that way. When I first got started, I was doing them in one steps, and what I would find out is I'd go to the house and it was nothing. They changed everything. It looked nothing like the old photos. They put in hardwood and granite, and the whole thing's landscaped. And so I was wasting, I felt like I wasted all that time trying to pull comps when I could have went and looked at their house and then been more specific, but that's me, because I like being, and I never like to go and say, ugh, I was way up, because okay, beautiful house, they haven't changed anything, but they own 5 cats or dogs or hamsters in cages, and your value is really not the value of what the marketplace is. Now your value went from $250 to $270 to definitely $250, and hopefully they'll do some repairs, and if they do the repairs, maybe you're at $260. So for me, I gotta fill that. Or you walk in a house and you're like, walk straight into a wall and you're like, horrible feng shui. And now you're like, okay, this is not gonna sell as easy as the ones down the street. But you can. I mean, there's lots of agents that do it in one step. And I wouldn't tell you not to. 2 steps, just how I like to do it. Plus it gives me a chance to meet the people and what's their real motivation, Is there real motivation to get as much money for retirement? Then we're not in a hurry. Let's go with the $270 and just know we may be on the high side of the price point. If they're getting divorced, they still want as much money, but they don't want to be there very long. So maybe we start at $260. So, did that help?
Yes, there's other dynamics. Like you said, the floor plan, the
smells,
the interest of,
Sometimes it's furniture, layouts, things like that. So, and I want them to clear it all out so we could get the most money. And then pets are killers. Pets and smoke.
Ugh.
Smokes, it's just tough because you gotta have a smoker that's gonna buy the house or we're gonna sell it for a lot less. And so we have that conversation up front, you know. And I tell people, I love dogs. Not everybody loves dogs. I don't like when they sniff me all up. I don't like when my dog sniffs everybody up. I'm allergic to cats. So, and everybody has their thing. Some people don't want pets at all ever in their house. Some people smell a hint of smoke, they're done. They're out of there. So all of that stuff I like to prepare them for before I go in and prepare myself. Because wonder if the house is amazing and you walk in and it's a smoker's home. So there's all those things because I just like to see it. So then I would do this. We print the MLS sheet so we could do our check marks as we're going through because you always think you'll remember when you get back to the office and you don't because 10 other people called. So I just go through and start checking. Does it have central air? Does it have forced air furnace? Does it have in-floor hot water heat? Those types of things, and I start marking it so that when Jordan gets it and has to put it in, it's already been marked through and she's not having to come back and ask me for things. I try really hard. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but go ahead, Vicki.
I have trouble with certain things like the type of heating, baseboard, hot water heat, or I have trouble determining what kind of windows are what.
Okay.
How do we figure things out like that?
You should.
Like obviously an old home,
Is usually
there's
single pane.
but
So in older homes, that's where you're gonna find most likely single pane wood or metal. And I just kind of look. I honestly just look at the pane and see is it single pane or double pane. And if so if you look in it, if it's single, it's gonna be here. If it's double, it's gonna have that little gap in it. And then low E. So almost anything from about 2000 on has some kind of E protection, but I just ask them, are these low E? And sometimes you'll walk in and you'll see the tint in the window already, so you know it's a low E. But most of those are the newer houses, and almost all of them are vinyl, unless you have wood encasements. So in encasements, when it has the little handle on it, and you screw it out and you screw it in. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Delante's looking at me. I'm like,
Oh.
so, and then,
and are those in a newer window? I know on Woodbridge, when I sold that house, those were,
encasements.
yeah.
They've
were
made them all
fancy.
along. It's just like a sliding window of vinyl, but encasements are expensive.
Okay,
And they are the best type of window because they lock, they seal really tight.
okay.
They're an amazing window. So when I see encasements, the house has some upgrades and you want to say that, oh great, you have encasement windows, these are expensive.
Okay.
Because then you're triggering them.
You know, when I was new and just waiting, going through classes and stuff, my mentor, he would take us on field trips to Lowe's.
God,
I
that would
mean,
be
Home
so
Depot.
cool.
And that's how I learned the difference between a gas hot water heater and electric hot water heater. I
Right.
didn't know the difference. And you don't have to go on a field trip with me. Just go to Lowe's and just go into the
That's
hot
such
water
a great
heater
idea.
and just ask the guy, can you show me the difference between a gas hot water heater and electric? Go to the window department and say, what kind of
Oh
window
my
is this?
gosh.
Just go to Lowe's or
Let's
those
go
guys
have a
are
field
all
trip.
trained in their department. You know what I need to do? The flooring now.
The flooring's tough.
What is laminate, what is vinyl, what is high grade vinyl, what is waterproof
Oh.
vinyl? Just go to Lowe's or
That
Home
is
Depot,
great,
those guys
yeah.
are all specialists in their departments, and just talk to them and
Yeah.
spend, and even say, I'm a realtor, I'm gonna take a few notes. Or I'm a custom, and I'm gonna refer people, do you have a card? Can I call you if I get confused?
Well, I know, like on Home Tour, they discuss floating walls and the difference.
Right.
That's a good, in the serial number on water heaters, you can determine the age and the manufacturer. So tour is great too.
There's so much-
Tour is a great questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess my background's in construction, so it just comes easy to me. But yeah, that's a great idea. Like for me, I look for a gas line on a hot water heater. They're
And
marked
vents.
differently. Yeah, they're usually yellow, I believe. So, but that's a great idea. Or, just tours great, new homes are great, floating walls and that kind of thing, you should always see those in a basement. You're not gonna see those on the main level, but do you know what that is? You have a 2x4 that's on the base of the floor, and then you have another 2x4 up here, and it goes across and that holds the wall. So that's where they're gonna drywall to. The reason why is if the floor moves, which is not foundation, but if the floor moves, it gives that wall 2 inches of expansion. So it can move 2 inches without pushing the structure itself up. So floating walls are very important. So if the homeowner did the basement themselves, I always say, did you float the walls? Because you might not be able to see it. And hopefully they say yes.
You have to go, what?
Yeah, then you're like, oh, Lord, yeah. Go get Construction for Dummies, that book. I mean, when I first started, that's what I read. It was called like How to Build a House for Dummies or something. And I honestly read that before we built our first house. Even though my brother's a tile layer and we know all the contractors, I wanted to help know the process too, so it helped. And then it gives you visuals, so you could do something like that.
Just to have it on your bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times
Reference, yeah.
on baseboard, if it's baseboard, it's either electric or hot water. Those are your options. So,
And if there's a boiler, it's hot water.
yeah, and if there's a boiler and not a furnace, or it could have both, like our house on the Mesa had both. We had a boiler with in-floor hot water heat and then a furnace, a central air unit, and obviously blue heat. So if our hot water floor ever went out, we'd have heat. So it could be either or, but usually your seller knows. And if you don't know, just say, sometimes I don't even pen down, I'm so lazy. I'll say, is that hot water or electric? And they pop it off before you even start walking that direction. So they know. So things like that, but that's what I would do. So then once we get prepared, so now I have what's active in their area. I do what's under contract too. And then I do what's sold, what I think their comps are. They never see I don't give them my comps. I don't leave the paper there. I want to show them, and then I want to go back and do what I do best. So it's personal preference. You guys can do that. A lot of times they'll look at your comps and be like, well, this isn't, my house is 200 square feet bigger. Yep, and an appraiser goes up to 300 normally, so we're okay. So those kind of things, it's just my personal preference. I take it to show them, and then I put it away.
So when you list though, as part of the listing paperwork, you have them initial the CMA, right?
I don't.
Initial it? You don't?
No, I send it to them. So once I'm done with the CMA and I have the grid and the layout, here's why I don't leave the ones here. Because I have a range like this, and it never fails, and they would start asking me, well, why am I not 400 instead of 350? I saw you put a 400 in here. Well, it's because I didn't have enough information to shrink it. So then I send them the market analysis and their net sheet on my second and then I go over it. Send their net sheet, please send their net sheet. If you don't know how to do one, we'll do one in class. Because you cannot believe how many people get to closing and say, I thought I was gonna make a lot more than this. And you're like, that's never the conversation. Do their net sheet, even for lots. We do net sheets for everything because I don't ever want them to get to closing, which I've been there. How do I learn all this stuff? Unfortunately, by experience. And so that's what we're trying to stop you guys from going through all the brutal stuff that I've been through. So do their net sheet because they need to know where they're gonna be at the end. If they have to clean out their septic, I put the 550 inspection in there because I want them to be prepared and I want them to ask me the question in case I didn't mention it in the listing presentation, why do I need this septic number in here? So always, always, always send them a net sheet because it's very hard when they say, I didn't know I was gonna clear this. And I go back to the first email I ever sent them and said, oh, well, let's pull that old email up and see if I made a mistake. because most likely I didn't. They just forgot what they were gonna clear, or our price was higher than, or something like that. So that's why I do a two-part. I put a lot of time into listings because for me, the number is the most important part of it, and I would rather spend that extra time now than in the middle of the deal trying to tell them why our number's too high.
So I have a question. I had a listing appointment this week, and the house needs a ton of work.
Mhm.
Probably $50,000 worth. The owner's brother started the rehab and died, so
Oh.
everything's, it needs electrical, it needs new sewer main line, it needs drywall, it needs flooring, bathrooms are gutted and tiles, and I don't know how to value it. I know what I would pay for it as an investor.
And that's what I would do.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So when I look at things like that, I'm like, what would an investor pay and what would they make? So the way I look at it is, if you sold it for $50,000, if the house was completely repaired, it'd be worth whatever, 120, 150. As an investor, who is who we have to sell it to,
Right, exactly.
I would have to buy it somewhere between 50, maybe 60, because I have $50,000 of repair and I don't work for free. So,
Right, so you have to build in the profit margin.
Yep.
Yeah.
and I have to pay agents too. So I pay, every flip we do, we pay agents. So
Yeah.
that's part of the thing, because they would pay an agent to sell it, you see what I'm
Right,
saying?
sure.
If it was on the higher end. So that's how I do it. And a lot of times you could pull investor special. Do you guys know how to search by that?
No.
So I go to public remarks. So there would be everything I would think probably needed to be fixed up because it has investor on there. And then I would just take a look at their square footage and what they sold for. And then I would take the pictures that are most like the one you're trying to sell for them. And you just have to say, this is what sold for $50,000. This is why I think you should sell it for that.
Okay. Yeah, that's
You just amaze me. I'm like shaking my head thinking, oh my gosh.
Aww.
You're just, this wealth of information. I would have
Kate,
not thought.
when do you have the conversation of, would you like to take FHA conventional, or, because when you look at it and it's a lot of peeling paint,
Mhm.
you have that conversation? Or
Oh, absolutely. Right when we're walking through the house. So when they tell me how amazing their home is, I just say, are we going to appeal to FHA VA buyers? Because if we want to pick up that marketplace, then the FHA VA requirements are no peeling paint, handrails, broken windows, and window well covers, and sometimes gutter extensions. And they'll be like, well, what do you mean? And I said FHA VA are government-backed loan. So they have requirements for them to borrow the money that these have to be done, because they don't want them to get in a house that they have to start doing repairs on. And I say, so I see all this peeling paint. Are you willing to paint the house to pick up those buyers? And then I show them statistics. So I show them how many people bought FHA VA in that area.
Well, where do you get that information?
On the reports. So it tells you right here.
Okay.
And I think they just emailed one recent.
Yeah,
last
you get
week.
it monthly, I think, because once they see there was 200 buyers, they might want to paint the house. I probably would. So, yeah, so that's how I have the conversation. And then if they can't afford it, then I say, well, if I can find a contractor who would wait till you sell the house, basically you would send that bill to title, so they're guaranteed payment. You could maybe find somebody like that.
So if you did that, the risk of the contractor is that the house doesn't sell, right? They
Mhm.
change their mind, so the
Yeah.
contractor is kind of sticking their neck out a little bit.
Right, but I guarantee, so
But
is
you
my
guarantee it,
contractors, I
yeah.
guarantee it, because they're gonna get paid, and then I'll just go file a lien against the house. But if I'm the agent I think I am,
Yeah.
the house
you're
should
gonna get
sell.
it sold.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, and I've had a few of those. But if you don't, yes, that is
Yeah.
a risk, but they can always put a lien against the house.
Right.
I haven't had to do it, but. Okay, so then I take all the information I have, we walk through their house, we tell them all the things that we love about it, what do they love about it? What do they not like about it? You know, it could be the neighbor's barking dog, something like that. So, you know, you have to overcome that objection. They don't like it's too big now. You know, when you're downsizing and your kids aren't home anymore, you don't need as much space as maybe you have, or maybe the kitchen's a little small, or things like that. Because sometimes it's something so easy, you could fix it.
Mhm.
It's just so simple. It's like, oh, this is an easy fix. So just that. So then we walk through that, go through, then I'll sit down, we kind of go through their wants and needs, and by then, you know, you've had the thing, and I say, oh, I see that you're moving to Alabama. Do you have an agent in the area? Oh, you don't? Let me get you a great agent in that area. Da da da. And they always want help, so it's a nice way too to get them transitioned. And then what I tell them is, me and your other agent are going to work together, so you're not homeless. So that agent's going to find you a house while I'm selling your house, and then her and I are going to work together to make sure that the transaction is mirrored, is what I call it. And then I say, I'll have your market analysis in the next 3 to 5 days. And then I'll give you a call, or you can schedule an appointment to call me so we can go over it, and then we just follow up. Usually it's the next day after I send it. Because I want them to go through it. And you have 2 decision makers. There's no reason to call them the same day because they're gonna have to talk that night. And the goal is not to have 2 separate conversations all the time, because it takes up a lot of time. So, and then I would just leave and start preparing it. Did that help? No, not a lot of Scentsy, so I don't know. You know, yes, you want the house to smell like warm cookies, but not overbearing, because the first things a buyer thinks is that you're hiding a smell. So keep it really, if they're gonna do, it has to be a really light fragrance. Not, you know, I've been in houses where they have a Scentsy in every room and a dog. Odds are they don't want you to smell the dog. So, and it's okay to say that. So if I'm a buyer's agent, depending on how you guys work in agency or transaction broker, I'm a buyer's agent. If I smell a dog, I'll say, did you smell the dog? Because that's my job, is to point those things out.
I've had trouble with that twice
Mm-hmm.
on the listing side. Years ago, I had an older couple. The house was by St. Mary Corwin, cute little brick home. It was adorable. It smelled horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dog had literally urinated throughout the house.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I bring it up, the couple was upset. I had walked them through the house. Everybody that went on tour was like, oh, this place stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they had the little plug-in things. So that was hard. I mean, the house finally did sell, but
Yeah, it's never an easy conversation.
yeah, and then even with my sister-in-law recently, when I listed her house, she had a cocker. Those dogs, I love them. I had one, but they smell.
They like
and
have a sweat. So here's what
and
we
she
have
got
in
angry
ours.
with me because I told her, Becky, we've got to like shampoo these carpets. We got to do something. I lived with her. It was hard.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is where I have that conversation when I go through our listing presentation. Get rid of odors. I just put it on here because I put pets, clean out cat litter every day. If we're gonna list, it has to be cleaned every day. Food, don't cook fish or eggs in the morning because nobody knows what that sulfur smell is in the afternoon. Kids, so love teenage boys, but their bedrooms are ripe. And smoke, all teenage boys. I'm just giving it, because Jay's a clean freak, so I know it's just their sweat or something, and then smoke. So when I go over this, they're like, the first thing they ask me is, did you smell my pet? And I said, yes, I did. You know, and they're gonna say, oh, really? I mean, I had one couple, they couldn't smell it, went and blue lighted the house, recarpeted the whole house. Because they just didn't, just like my dad, his older he gets, he says the worse his nose gets. He can't smell it, or he can't smell the smoke sometimes. So I just have the conversation here, and I say, not everybody loves pets. I love dogs, cats. They don't want their dog fur all over their black pants when they leave, so we need to remove them, or don't let them sniff people up, or that kind of thing. And then it's never an easy conversation. And then I say, you know, we have a dog, sometimes I don't know if I smell her either. It's not saying that they're bad people, it's saying you can't smell your dog. And then you just say, you know, you can do an ozone machine. It'll help suck some of that smell out. It'll never go away, but it'll help suck some of it out. Some of the smoke too. Some of those are tough. And I say, you know, I call it carpet cleaner that has the pet deodorizer. But I'd say if our buyer doesn't have pets, we're gonna have to overcome this objection. Are you willing to give them a carpet allowance or reduce the price? Or I tell them it's gonna be an objection because most likely it will be. And then I say, we'll start now, but if we keep saying pets, 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 then once we list, we know we gotta do something with the pets. Because a lot of people think they won't smell it.
Sometimes too, we had one in Pueblo West that, they had 3, and really the house didn't really smell bad, but they had, you know what they had? Dog bed, dog bed,
Oh,
dog bed,
yeah.
dog kennel, dog kennel, dog kennel, dishes, dishes, dishes. And I told them, when you guys show this house, you need to put that away, because people see that even if they don't smell it, and some people are just like, oh, they got a dog, you know? And that you just can't just pick it up and put it away, put it in the garage or whatever.
Put it in the garage, yeah.
But because you just can't have all that.
You're
stuff
right,
over the
because
house.
sometimes it's not dog, they're smelling something else,
Right.
but they blame the dog
Mhm.
or the cat, yeah.
And this house didn't even smell, but it's just like, some people that don't like dogs, they're not gonna wanna see 3 dog kennels in your sunroom.
Exactly.
Just put them away.
Away, yeah, we say the same thing. And try and take the dogs with you during
Yes.
showings if you can. Well, and we do tell people that too, that especially if it's barking at me the whole time we're there, I just say, what are you gonna be able to do with the dog during showings? And then they're like, what do you mean our dog? And I'm like, can you take your dog with you? Because if I'm showing clients, and if they have little kids and the dog's barking nonstop, usually it ends our showing because they're afraid their daughter or son's gonna get bit. So I tell people it could affect whether somebody would buy your home or not. If the dog's barking the whole time, they can't focus on the house.
They can.
They're focusing on your dog. So it's just saying it in a nice way. It's just saying, this is just what it is, unfortunately. Just like saying bread walls aren't really in style anymore. It's not that it's a bad thing. And then I just say we're trying to get the most money for your house. So if the dog is gone and it got you 10,000 more, which it could, I mean, it could possibly, or less time on the market,
Yep.
is that worth taking your dog every time? We would. And I say professionally clean because they have deodorizers, and they say, oh, I have one of those little ones. And I say sometimes it doesn't suck up the water, and then you get like that moldy smell, which is just as bad as pets.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say, I have a great service, and I tell him, and he has pet deodorizers, and they're amazing. Very rarely do I walk into a house and I'm like, oh my
Change
God,
the carpet,
this
what-
thing's ready
what
for
items?
photos today.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why is you have to declutter, and sometimes people forget that, like a bunch of knickknacks or all this stuff on the kitchen countertops, because then it doesn't look like it has any kitchen counter space because you got 800 things on the countertop. Or new bedspreads. I mean, that's a cheap way to make your photos look amazing.